Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm going to talk to you today more about the truth about the Mexican War, okay? Now, Texas in 1836 became an independent republic, and they were not annexed by the United States until about 9 years later. Now, this is in Mexico's defense. Mexico had begun to accept the fact that there was going to be an independent Texas, and they were okay with that as long as the United States did not annex them. And the U.S. around that time had a lot of white supremacy ideologues, or a white supremacy ideology, and it made Mexicans on the border with the United States feel uneasy, and particularly if Texas became part of the United States, and the United States at that time was an up and coming superpower. Took a while before they would actually be a superpower, but they were. This is where they were an up and coming superpower, and that did go on. Mexico had become. They started to get used to the idea of an independent Texas until the United States annexed them, and around that time after they were annexed. After the United States annexed Texas, and Texas wanted to belong to the United States, they petitioned the U.S. to annex them. And here was the thing: Mexico recognized the Nueces River as the border between Mexico and the U.S. The U.S. recognized the Rio Grande River, and yes, U.S. troops did go past what Mexico considered the border, and Mexican soldiers shot at them. And the president of the United States at the time, James Polk, said that's a declaration for war. Now, Abraham Lincoln was a U.S. congressman at the time and demanded where the blood was spilt. And Abraham Lincoln opposed the war. Henry David Thoreau, who was a writer, refused to pay taxes to fund the Mexican War, and he was jailed. Ulysses S. Grant, who was a junior officer for the United States Army during the Mexican War, he said he thought that the Mexican War was a wicked war. He opposed it, but he did the duty to his country. He thought the Mexican people were frugal, hardworking, diligent people who he admired. But he did the duty to his country, and his country was the United States. But here's the other side of this, okay? Mexico's constitution, when they became an independent nation from Spain, it had a mountain of religious intolerance. Non-Catholics could go to jail, they could be whipped. Rarely were they executed, but it was a mountain of religious intolerance. There was also so much economic inequality in Mexico. Americans had visited Mexico before, right when Mexico became independent, and they said when they visited the poor neighborhoods, largely known as barrios, when they visited the very poor neighborhoods, they said that the slave quarters in the United States looked better than the poor neighborhoods in Mexico, that the slaves in the U.S. lived better than the dirt floor poor people in the poor neighborhoods in Mexico. And then some of these people that came down were not advocates of slavery, and they weren't defending slavery. This was just a situation of how bad the economic situation was in Mexico. Mexico, from the time they became an independent republic from Spain to the time of the U.S.-Mexican War, which was not very long, it was under 50 years, not even 50 years. But around that time, they had about 20 different leaders. They had a new leader of the country about once every 1 or 2 years. So Mexico, the Mexican War is not to blame for a lot of Mexico's problems. Mexico had a lot of those problems of economic inequality, corruption, and the leaders getting rich and pocketing money for themselves, even before when they were a Spanish colony, and even right when they became an independent country. Those problems have been with Mexico since Mexico has become a country, and even before they were their own country. So, hope everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless them. Bye bye.